Chapter 1 Tantra. The aim of Tantra is succinctly defined in the word itself. Tantra has been derived from the combination of two Sanskrit words, Tanoti, or expansion, and Trayati, or liberation. This implies that Tantra is the method to expand the mind and liberate the dormant potential energy. In order to understand Tantra, we have first to comprehend exactly what is meant by expansion of mind and liberation of energy. The range of our experience related to the inner and outer world is usually severely limited. We can only see, hear, feel, taste and smell through the use of our physical senses. If one of our senses is impaired, our experience and knowledge related to that sense is restricted and hampered. Therefore, perception and cognition are totally and mercilessly dependent on the senses. This is a limited adjunct in our lives because knowledge derived through the senses is restricted by the boundaries of time, space and object. Time, space and object exist only as categories of the individual mind. If there is no individual mind, there is no time or space or object, and vice versa. These three categories of mind are finite and cannot be regarded as the source of infinite or imperishable knowledge. As long as we function through the realm of the senses and mind, we cannot transgress these finite and restricting boundaries. For example, to see the lustrous beauty of a flower, it is necessary to have the flower in front of your open eyes. To smell the fragrance of sandal or lavender, it is necessary to have it in close proximity to the nose. To taste the sweetness of chocolate or the pungency of chilies, they have to be eaten. This type of experience is called objective because it is dependent on the presence of an object, the senses and the mind in relation to both of them. However, there is a range of experience when you can see with your eyes closed, taste in the absence of food, hear the sound of music without any instrument to cause it. That is purely subjective experience, and it is unbound by the categories of finite mind. Knowledge gained through a subjective experience is far more accurate and precise than that gained through an objective experience, because it is the consequence of an expanded mind. Expansion of mind is that phenomena which allows an individual to experience beyond the realm of the senses, time, space and matter. In that realm you are unbound by distance and time. You can travel into the past or future and know the happenings at places where you are not physically present. It is known as expansion of mind, but it is unattainable as long as you are bound by sensorial experience. Mind operating through the senses and ego categorizes all experiences according to raga and dvesha, or likes and dislikes, which it has inculcated. This imposition of the mind creates a distortion of the knowledge received from any experience and does not allow for growth of the pure, refined knowledge. Knowledge gained through an expanded mind gradually evolves and finally culminates into intuitive knowledge, which has been declared as eternal, absolute and the true knowledge. But the expansion of mind does not happen overnight. One goes through a long range of experiences, some mild, some intense, some pleasant, some unpleasant. It is a gradual growth which finally culminates in absolute knowledge or Brahma Jnana. A child does not grow into an adult overnight. The transformation is gradual. The line of demarcation between child and adult is so subtle that one can never point out where one ended and the other began. Similarly, man's consciousness is evolving all the time. Mind is expanding and crossing new boundaries. The transformation is taking place, but the pace is gradual and the change subtle. In order to accelerate the evolution of mind and direct your own transformation, you will have to turn to the practice of Tantra and Yoga. These practices are designed to accelerate the liberation of energy from matter and manifest the pure innate consciousness which is the source of all knowledge. Aim of Tantra. The mind which we use in day-to-day life for perception and cognition ordinarily acts through the senses. But if we can introvert the senses and turn the mind inwards, it manifests itself through inner experience and an expanded mind. Thus, matter is separated from energy, thereby liberating the energy or Shakti principle, which then unites with Shiva or consciousness, creating homogeneous awareness. Just as a river expanding into the ocean loses its limitations and restrictions, similarly, the finite mind expands into the cosmic or infinite mind and thus becomes a receptor and transmitter of the truth. When this occurs, there is a resulting explosion of energy, and the inherent consciousness is freed from the matter. This can be likened to the Kundalini experience, and this has always been the aim of Tantra. Other philosophies also reached out towards the same goal, although the paths may differ. In Vedanta philosophy, there is the concept of Brahman, or the indivisible, homogeneous, all-pervading reality or consciousness. The word Brahman is derived from the root Brihan, which means to expand, and can therefore be understood as expanding consciousness. It is this Brahmic awareness present in each one of us which is responsible for the highest knowledge. It exists as one, or the whole, towards which we are constantly striving to unite. In Tantra, this concept is interpreted as Shiva, or unconditioned consciousness, which exists as a silent witness within each one of us. Whether it be the Brahman of Vedantins, or Purusha of Samkhya philosophy, or Shiva of Tantra, it is essentially the same concept. However, the difference between Tantra and most other philosophies is that they lay many restrictions on the life of the aspirant and demand strict adherence to rules, whereas Tantra allows scope for the development of each and every individual regardless of his stage of evolution. Tantra says that whether you are a sensualist or a spiritualist, an atheist or theist, whether strong or weak, rich or poor, there is a path for you which you have to discover. This is the goal of Tantra, not occult sex, nor black magic, nor the acquisition of siddhis or psychic powers, nor licentious living. These have never been the aim of Tantra. Tantra may have been misinterpreted by some in this manner, but that is a different matter altogether. Moreover, we can hardly rely on those who have failed to achieve homogeneous awareness to present a true analysis of Tantra. Tantra, a liberal path to liberate the mind. From time to time, the Tantrics experimented with various methods and paths in order to achieve this aim. Their belief was that every man cannot tread the same path, because each person is poised at a different level of evolution. It is often said that one man's meat is another man's poison. The Tantrics realized the necessity of including a spiritual path for each and every individual, whether he was a gross sensualist, profound philosopher, or an evolving yogi. They often experimented with methods that would seem extremely gross and sensual to the average eye. These practices were considered bizarre, for they involved meditating beside a naked woman or near a dead body, and many other tantalizing practices. Many opposed and criticized Tantra for this reason, and felt such methods were just an excuse for indulgence and in no way induced spiritual experience. However, the inherent sincerity and steadfastness of the Tantric proves otherwise. If he experiments with licentious sex, alcohol and drugs, it should not be the act which is judged, but his mental awareness, attitude and purpose for which he practices it. If he invokes spirits and performs rites and rituals which can be commonly referred to as black magic, we should not criticize him on the basis of his actions, but on the basis of his motives for doing so. This is the essential difference between a Tantric and an ordinary gross individual who may practice the same, but purely for sensual enjoyment and material gain. Through these practices, a Tantric systematically explodes the powerful and potential force of energy within him. Passion, fear, hatred, love, anger, and so on are energy forces, and he meets them face to face. If properly tamed, these energy forces can lead to many higher experiences. During meditation, if he is able to maintain his concentration, they appear in the form of visions, dreams, varying sounds, clear voices, different types of music, and even objects, animals and human beings can be materialized. The proof of a Tantric's prowess lies in his ability to remain undeterred. He does not become overwhelmed by experience, nor is he ridden by fear. A man of infirm mental makeup, erratic emotions, and distracted mind may suffer a psychic attack, nervous depression, or even insanity, should he venture to do such or similar practices. What are fears and passions but forces of energy? The emotions we experience in our daily lives are enough to drive a person crazy. Balance cannot be maintained, and people are driven to insane acts of murder, rape, and crime. What will happen if your mind is confronted by the full force of fear and passion that exists within you? Could you handle that? However, the Tantric is able to explode the experience from within his unconscious. He is able to master this powerful internal force and convert it into a greater and subtler form which he himself can direct at will. However, it was found that many of these practices resulted in mind-blowing experiences from the unexplored dimensions of mind, which the average individual was incapable of withstanding. So, the Tantrics developed other practices which could lead the aspirant smoothly and mildly through graded experiences within his capacity. Extreme practices were left aside for those who were strong and resolute in the face of powerful inner experiences. These milder techniques, which set the foundation for advanced practices, include Hatha Yoga, Kriya Yoga, and Japa, as well as Tattwa Shuddhi. Tantric literature. Tantric literature clearly enumerates these and several other practices. However, Tantric literature is extremely vast and often incomprehensible to most people, because it is recorded in symbols, imagery, myth, and allegory. This is with due reason too, because the practices of Tantra in the hands of one who has not overpowered his instinctive nature are like dynamite in the hands of a child. Tantric sadhana ensures results within a very short period, which accrue as siddhis or psychic powers. But these siddhis are of little consequence for the evolution of consciousness. Rather, they often prove to be a barrier because many aspirants remain forever entangled by the benefits derived thereof. Therefore, in Tantra, this knowledge is very wisely obscured from the layman in such a way that only the sincere aspirant can understand the meaning of the symbology. In total, there are 64 Tantras, i.e., texts on Tantra, dealing with varied sciences, such as how to control one's mind and also the mind of another person, how to attain immortality, how to achieve virility and sexual prowess, and so on. The famed commentarian Bhaskaraya has included 8 more texts into the list, making a total of 72 Tantras. Tantric science is so varied that there is a path for everyone. Even the person who is not at all spiritual can find a way to expand his consciousness. Along with the Tantric texts, the Puranas also deal with the Tantric sciences. The Puranas are mostly allegorical, and many Tantric practices have been disguised further in the garb of mythology. They extol the lives and legends of Devas and Rakshasas, divine and demonic beings. And through their colorful stories, we are led to the path of Tantra. It is in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam and Mahanirvana Tantra that the practice of Tattwa Shuddhi has been divulged. Worship of Shakti. However, the student of Tantra will discern one important fact at the outset: that although the science of Tantra confesses to an all-pervading reality, it also pays homage to and maintains strict faith in the presence of the dual aspect of Shiva, consciousness, and Shakti, energy. Shiva is the static principle, which exists as pure unconditioned consciousness, but it is only at the behest of Shakti, the kinetic principle, that Shiva, who otherwise remains inert, is motivated into action. This is symbolized in the Tandava Nritya of Shiva, the dance of Shiva, after which he has been named Nataraja. For every aspect of Shiva, there is a corresponding aspect of Shakti. If Shiva is Shambhu, then Shakti is Shambhavi. If Shiva is Maheshwara, Shakti is Maheshwari. If Shiva is Bhairava, Shakti is Bhairavi. If Shiva is Rudra, Shakti is Raudri. Shiva and Shakti are complementary at every level. From this concept arose a sect known as Shaktas, i.e., followers of the philosophy of Shakti, who consider Shakti as the all-pervading reality. In fact, in the Shakta Puranas, the question arises whether the ultimate reality is male or female. Shaktas unanimously assert that the creator of the universe could only be a female, for creation is an inherent principle of the female and not the male. The worship of Shakti reached its zenith only under the influence of Tantra. Vedic theology was male-oriented, and the goddesses or Shaktis received only peripheral role. This is not so in Tantra. All Tantric practices are designed to awaken the inherent Shakti or energy, which is the female or negative principle. Without awakening this energy, consciousness can never manifest. This is the claim of Tantra, and today science is even verifying the Tantric claim. According to modern physics, matter and energy are interconvertible. Tantra goes one step further and says matter, energy and consciousness are interconvertible. But matter cannot be transformed into pure consciousness without the medium of energy. Therefore, in Tantra, Shakti stands at par with Shiva. Manifestation of Shiva, Shakti in the body. It is the claim of Tantra that these aspects of Shakti and Shiva, energy and consciousness, are not abstractions but a tangible reality existing within the framework of the body-mind structure. Tantra states that Shakti, which represents the subtlest manifestation of energy, lies coiled like a serpent at the root of the spine and is known as Kundalini, whereas Shiva, or consciousness, is located in the region of Sahasrara Chakra, the highest evolutionary center in man, which is situated at the crown of the head. However, due to the grossness of the body-mind, which is governed by the sense experience, these two powers remain dormant in the majority of people. In order to awaken the latent force of Kundalini, it is necessary to intensify the quantity and quality of prana, the vital energy force, in the region where it is situated. Once awakened, Kundalini has to be directed upwards to unite with Shiva, or consciousness, in the region of Sahasrara. During her ascent, the Kundalini Shakti passes 6 energy circuits, or chakras, which are the storehouses of energy, and thus supercharges each chakra. These chakras are the junction points of nadis, or energy channels, and vibrate with varying frequencies, ranging from gross to subtle. Inherent within the chakras are dormant creative powers, which partially manifest in daily life. Their full potential can only be awakened when Kundalini Shakti pierces through them on her journey to unite with Shiva. The basis of Tantric Sadhana. The essence of Tantric Sadhana can be classified into 3 stages of upasana, or worship. The Tantric believes that every act, however mundane, if offered to the higher force within oneself or abounding in the universe, becomes meaningful and a medium through which he can transform his awareness. These 3 stages of upasana are: 1. Shuddhi, purification of the gross, subtle and psychic elements or tattwas. 2. Sthiti, illumination resulting through concentration, which is achieved by refining or purifying the elements. 3. Arpana, unification with the higher force within oneself, or realization of the cosmic consciousness. Thus, Shuddhi is the basis of all Tantric sadhanas, whether they are based on Vamachara, Kaulachara or Vedachara practices. These are the 3 major categories of Tantric sadhana, and they have all emphasized the requirement of Shuddhi as an integral part of spiritual practice and evolution. Tattwa Shuddhi in the Tantras. Tantrism has been marked as one of the most distinct and revolutionary facets of Indian philosophy, due to its amalgamation of so many heterogeneous elements. It is therefore no wonder that an aspirant in search of spiritual experience can easily delve into the Tantric literature to find a suitable path. The practice of Tattwa Shuddhi has been derived from this wide source of Tantric literature. Tantric practices can be easily discerned from non-tantric practices by their intensive use of sacred formulae, symbolism, and ritual-oriented practices. External worship and ritual are considered essential in Tantra to create a suitable environment for luring the higher and subtler forces. These rites are carefully selected to symbolize the inner forces which are unleashed through esoteric sadhana, and are often detailed processes lasting for several hours. The practice of Tattwa Shuddhi described in this book has been taken from the ritual of Tantric worship, which includes Nyasa, consecration of the body, Prana Pratishta, installing life and power into the mandala, Panchopchara, 5 ingredients offered in worship to the tattvas, and Japa, mantra repetition, which are discussed later. Due to ample use of exoteric ritual, i.e. application of ash and fasting, and esoteric ritual in the form of visualization of yantra and mandala, it is easy to discern that Tattwa Shuddhi is derived from Tantric sadhana. References to Tattwa Shuddhi can be found in many of the Tantras, as it is an essential part of all esoteric sadhanas. In the Tattva Sambara, one of the 64 Tantras, there is a description of how we can cause the elements to appear. Mahanirvana Tantra also enumerates this practice as a part of Tantric Upasana or worship. However, in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, a Shakta Purana extolling the glories of Devi, this practice is given in full detail. These, as well as other Tantric texts, strongly assert that Tattwa Shuddhi is a necessary step towards higher experience, as it refines the basic elements from which spiritual experience unfolds. Today we are becoming aware that matter is but an extension of consciousness, or an aspect that consciousness has assumed. Thus, in order to experience the effulgence of consciousness devoid of matter, it is first of all necessary to refine that into which it has manifested. The process of refinement is triggered through Tattwa Shuddhi. In order to transcend the experience of matter, it is imperative that the practice you employ should be based on a thorough knowledge of the principles related to the mind, body, and consciousness. The consciousness is unable to transcend matter due to the inherent laws governing the tattvas, which compose the entire structure of your existence. Tattwa Shuddhi is based on a very profound understanding of these principles and aims to restructure their grossness and density. Tattwa Shuddhi is a firm step towards the fulfillment of the goal set by Tantric Sadhana, which is to experience the light of energy and consciousness. It is not enough to merely state that all matter has evolved from consciousness. The truth cannot be realized by intellectual knowledge, nor verified by philosophical reasoning. It is only through one's practice and personal experience that one can induce a capacity to understand any spiritual truth. Personal experience, which is greatly emphasized in Tantra, becomes possible through the practice of Tattwa Shuddhi. The rich imagery placed before the mind has been carefully selected to imply that everything which exists in nature is a part of energy and consciousness. The sadhaka is taught to realize that each part of his body is functioning through Shakti, and by continual practice each tattva is divinized until it is seen not as gross inert matter but as a form of Shakti which represents consciousness. This energy, which is locked up in matter, is released and transformed through the practice of Tattwa Shuddhi. Energy vibrates in the body as a pranic flow, and when this flow is increased, it awakens a higher experience. Although several yogic practices are designed to increase the flow of prana, Tattwa Shuddhi allows for both increase and transformation of prana. It is also important to understand that through inner concentration on the Tattva yantras, we are not only heightening the level of prana, but also directly influencing the chakras. Each tattva is intimately linked with a particular chakra, and this in turn prepares the basis for awakening of Kundalini and its ascent to Sahasrara. Tantric sadhana is given to an aspirant on the basis of his level of evolution. Thus, there are three grades of sadhana, known as Sthula, exoteric, Sukshma, subtle, and Para, transcendental, one progressively culminating into the other. The different methods of pratyahara, such as asana, pranayama, mudra, bandha, as well as all forms of puja or worship, can be categorized as Sthula sadhana. Sukshma sadhana, which develops as a consequence of perfection in the methods of Sthula sadhana, can be termed as a process of dharana, or concentration, on a mantra or symbol or Ishta Devata, one's personal symbol. This gradually leads the aspirant to the stage of dhyana or meditation, which is considered to be para or highest sadhana, culminating in samadhi. Tattwa Shuddhi comes under the category of Sukshma sadhana, thus providing the necessary link for the development of higher practices. It is within the capacity of anyone who has sincerely practiced yoga for a few years. When an aspirant's body and mind are sufficiently prepared in the stages of pratyahara and the mind is easily introverted, then Tattva Shuddhi develops concentration or dharana. Perfection in this practice induces spontaneous dhyana or meditation, which leads the aspirant to Tattva Jnana, or realization of the subtle essence behind the form.